The night was quiet, the kind of silence only the countryside knew. Crickets chirped under the star-dusted sky, and the smell of hay drifted through the cool breeze. But suddenly, that peace was shattered. A pickup truck roared up the gravel path toward a small, weather-beaten farmhouse. Its headlights cut across the darkness, blinding the rows of corn. Inside the truck, a group of men laughed crudely. They were known troublemakers in the county, self-styled tough guys who thrived on intimidating the weak. Their latest target, a woman who lived alone on the edge of town. Rumors had spread that she was just a quiet farmer, a recluse tending her land after her husband's passing. To them, she was easy prey. But what they didn't know was that the woman they planned to torment wasn't ordinary. Her name was Sarah Cole, and though she lived quietly now, far removed from the chaos of war, she had once been a legend, one of the most feared Delta Force commanders in U.S. military history. Sarah had walked away from that life years ago. She wanted nothing more than to heal, to live simply, to plant her crops and watch the seasons turn. The farm was her sanctuary, a place where she could bury memories of bloodshed and loss. But scars from the battlefield never truly fade. That night, as she sat in her modest kitchen sipping tea, she heard the truck's tires screech outside. Her instinct sharpened instantly. She recognized the sound of danger the way a wolf senses a rival in the dark. Through the window, she saw the men spilling out of the truck, beer bottles in hand, baseball bats resting on their shoulders. Their shouts carried across the fields. "Hey, old lady, nice little farm you got here," one of them yelled. "Bet you won't mind sharing it with us." Sarah remained still, her face unreadable. But inside, a storm began to stir. The men stomped onto her land, knocking over barrels, kicking at the wooden fence, and laughing at their own destruction. One of them threw a bottle, and it shattered against the side of her barn. Sarah rose from her chair, her body moving with the quiet confidence of someone who had faced death 1,000 times and survived. She stepped onto the porch. The creak of the floorboards made the bullies turn. They expected to see fear in her eyes. Instead, they saw calm, a stillness so unsettling it made them hesitate. "Leave," she said softly. The men smirked. "Or what?" The leader sneered. "You gonna call the sheriff? He can't save you tonight." Sarah studied them for a moment. These weren't soldiers. They weren't trained killers. They were cowards hiding behind loud voices and broken bottles. Still, she knew what men like them could do if unchecked. She had seen villages burned by arrogance. She had seen women crushed under cruelty. And she had sworn never again to stand by while bullies reigned. She gave them one last chance. "Walk away. This is your only warning." They laughed. One of them rushed forward, swinging his bat at her porch railing. The crack of splintering wood echoed in the night. That was their mistake. In less than a heartbeat, Sarah moved. She disarmed the man with a fluid motion, twisting his wrist until he dropped the bat with a scream. Before he knew what had happened, he was face down in the dirt, pinned by her boot. The others froze, shocked at her speed. But pride wouldn't let them back down. With a roar, two more charged at her. Sarah dodged effortlessly, her training igniting like a long-buried flame. A swift elbow strike dropped one to his knees, and a sweeping kick sent the other sprawling into the grass. The leader finally realized this was no ordinary woman. Fear flickered in his eyes. But still, he tried to save face, pulling a knife from his belt. "You'll regret this," he spat. Sarah's expression didn't change. Memories surged in her mind, of desert missions under moonlight, of the faces of her brothers and sisters in arms, of the years she commanded respect and fear on battlefields no one would ever read about in history books. She had faced men far deadlier than this, and she had walked away every time. He lunged. She sidestepped, grabbed his arm, and twisted so fast that the knife clattered harmlessly to the ground. In seconds, he too was subdued, staring up at her in disbelief. The silence afterward was deafening. The men groaned in the dirt, clutching bruises and broken pride. Sarah released them, but her voice carried the weight of command as she spoke. "Listen carefully. You think strength is breaking things that don't belong to you. You think power is scaring those who live in peace. But real strength is protecting, not destroying. I have faced war. I have buried friends. I have carried the weight of battles you cannot imagine. And tonight, I could have ended every one of you. But I won't, because this farm is where violence ends." Her words cut deeper than her strikes ever could. The men, humbled and shaken, scrambled to their feet. Without another word, they fled back to their truck, their laughter gone, replaced by silence and shame. Sarah stood alone on her porch, the night returning to its stillness. She felt the ache in her muscles, the familiar adrenaline rushing through her veins. But as she looked across her farm, the fields she had nurtured, the animals that depended on her, the life she had built, she smiled faintly. This was her new battlefield. Not with guns or grenades, but with resilience, with quiet courage, with the strength to rebuild and defend what mattered most. Word of what happened that night spread quickly through town. The bullies never dared return. And though most would never know the full truth of Sarah Cole's past, the people came to respect her deeply. They called her strong, unshakable, a woman who stood her ground not because she wanted to fight, but because she had already fought enough for a lifetime. In the end, Sarah's story became a quiet legend, a reminder that sometimes the most dangerous warriors are the ones who choose peace, but will rise in defense of it when the shadows come creeping.